college was working for my fraternity headquarters as like the nationals guy. So I got to travel around all over the country. I visited over 60 college campuses in 2 years. Lived out of basically the trunk of a car, uh, sleeping on couches and air mattresses and open beds in fraternity houses for 2 years, which was by far the most fun job that I'll never want to have again. Um, but it was really cool, and I was able to utilize a lot of that, what I learned back then in my business now. And it also helps with rapport building because it's really great if, if I meet someone at an event here in Charlotte who went to University of Wisconsin, which there's not a lot of Big Ten people here, I can confidently talk to them about State Street and KK's and some of the bars that I've been to and some of the different things that I've done there. And that's at over 60 college campuses that I've been to. So it's a way to instantly build rapport, and it's something that like has really helped me because I decided to build my business as more of a sphere-based, networking-based, relationship-based business with a hint of marketing rather than a lot of the marketing-based businesses, just because I simply didn't have the time or the money to be able to invest in my business when I started. So I got into real estate 10 and a half years ago when I moved to Charlotte. I started in commercial brokerage and then got into residential. So my path was actually commercial brokerage at Marcus and Millichap. The guy that I was working for was based out of Raleigh. So I've been to the Umstead. He used to take me there all the time. And he literally told me, and this is so you guys kind of know what world I was living in and world I like all I knew when I was getting into real estate. He literally told me the weekend before my exam that he wished me luck on the exam and told me that if I don't pass, don't bother coming in on Monday because if you can't pass the first time, you're not smart enough to be here. So that was the world I lived in. We were suit and tie every single day, and they literally were relentless. It was cutthroat. And these guys in commercial real estate, and if you're interviewing with them, instead of asking about resumes and stuff, they'll just simply ask, how many times did you take the real estate exam? And if it's more than one, the interview's over. And they're not kidding about that. And so I always kind of look down on residential. I mean, we've all seen the videos, we've seen the movies and the TV shows and Netflix and all that stuff. So they paint an interesting picture of residential agents. So I moved from commercial brokerage into commercial financing about 10 years ago. I did commercial brokerage for like 8 or 9 months and then moved into financing for about 2.5 years. I absolutely hated it. I sucked at it. One of my best friends got that job at the same time as me. We didn't know each other at the time, but now is one of my best friends. And we joke that my job was just to make him look good because I was so bad at my job and I didn't like it and I was very apathetic and I couldn't wait to get out of there. And so eventually I met some residential agents who were at KW at the time and they were pretty savvy. One of them came from the hedge fund world. They really treated it like a business and they had people in place. They had systems in place. They had operations staff. They had all kinds of stuff, the stuff that you guys are probably learning all the time. They had all these things in place so that they could actually run it like a business and not just sell houses or open doors and do the kind of stuff that you see on TV shows. And so after meeting with them a lot, I realized that this is actually a really good opportunity for me because I've always wanted to build a relationship-based business. I've always had the dream of just being the guy that everybody knows and being able to go around town and run into people. Like I love that. I am very much an extrovert and really get a lot out of being in front of people and going and going to events, shaking hands, running into friends. Just that's what fills my cup. I love that stuff. So like tonight, I'm going to we have an MLS team here in Charlotte. I'm going to the soccer game tonight with one of my friends who's a client, and his parents are actually under contract with me right now. And I'm sure we're going to run into all kinds of people that I know. And I live for that because to me, that's how I stay top of mind. And then what I do is I supplement that with social media. So when I got into real estate, I was asked if I wanted to have a relationship-based business or a marketing-based business, and I didn't really know what that meant at the time. But now I can see how pivotal that was and how crucial it was for getting started because I literally decided that I would rather, after doing hundreds of open houses in my first couple years, I decided that it was not worth my time doing open houses and that my time was better spent going to the bars, going to the breweries, playing golf, going to Virginia Tech watch parties on Saturdays and drinking with friends and just hanging out with people. It was better spent doing that than spending money on Facebook ads or cold calling or open houses even because I was so good with my friends and their friends and I was able to build my own network and my own sphere of influence here that they started trusting me. And the main thing for me, and my wife gives me a lot of shit for this because it's not a real word, but my main thing is you have to have TLC. You have to have trustability, which is not a real word, but I don't really care, likability, and credibility. And if you're missing any one of those, clients aren't going to want to work with you. And so I realized that when I was new, I had the trust and the likability with my friends because they trusted me as a person. They liked me as a person, but I wasn't credible to them yet because I was brand new and they knew me as Andy, the commercial real estate finance guy that sucked at his job. And so I had to train my friends and their family and my family and everyone in my world to view me as a professional who is credible in the residential real estate space. And so I turned to social media because my thought was at the time I was in my late 20s. And if that's where most of the people I want to work with are, I need to be there. And so most of these people are sitting at the banks, scrolling Instagram, scrolling TikTok, scrolling Twitter or X in between all their meetings. I need to be in front of them. And so I turned to social media and really got intentional with that to show my world my credibility and to build out the credibility. And so it became a mission of mine to use social media for everything and just open my life up in social. And so I post everything on social media. So even right now, let's see, I have it right here. You can see you've got everything from my wedding this summer to a video about, I think this one's about home buying. This is a picture of me speaking at the regional rally for EXP in California. There's some pictures with other agents. There's professional pictures. There's videos for listings. There's a little bit of everything in here. And then what I've also noticed is that people like seeing some of the old stuff, right? So this was literally the picture from when I passed my real estate exam. And so then I mix in a lot of Virginia Tech stuff because I went there and I love it. I mix in some listing videos. I mix in some videos with agents who are affiliated with me at EXP. This was a picture from my very first closing 7.5 years ago. So I'm mixing in a lot of family, real estate, friends, more real estate. Like I'm mixing in a lot of stuff here. So it's interesting. But the key to all of this is up here. I always make sure that there are stories for people to look at when they come to my page. I want to make sure that, and this is like my dirty little secret, is that there's always a story. Even if it's something stupid, even if it's something silly, it doesn't matter what it is, there's always a story because it's not sticky. And it's not something where I am asking you to do something, right? If you come to my page, it's not really a huge ask to just click on my story because people just click through and just kind of tap all the way through all the stories. And so my thought is if I can get you hooked just by coming to my page and seeing the story and seeing a relatively clean page, which I got to clean these up. It's an impressive looking page. And then what happens is then you start scrolling, you start seeing some of the listings that I have. And then you start seeing some of the
So
talking head
as you
videos that I
navigate this
have.
industry, you
And then you start seeing just some images with things that are on my mind at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning when I schedule all my posts. So there's a lot of different stuff that's going on here, that gets people excited to see what I'm doing and find out what's coming next. And so that's why for some of the really fun stuff, I have highlights. So that way people actually have something that they can continue watching or they can check out when they come to the page. Because this is, again, boosting credibility. My whole thought process with all of this stuff is the more credibility that I have, the more exposure that I can get. The more exposure that I can get, the more opportunities for credibility that I can build. And it's a full circle. So I post these all the time because I want people to know that I'm credible. And the more credible I seem, the more exposure I'm going to get. And so then from there, what I do is I supplement all of that with my sales. And so far this year, I've closed 90 houses personally. I just put my biggest deal under contract at $3.6 million this weekend. So I'm out there selling. I'm working on a $80,000 piece of land right now. I don't care what it is. I don't care who it is. I am helping people with buying and selling. It doesn't matter how big or small the deal is. For the same client that I just put a $3.6 million house under contract, we had a nightmare deal at $35,000, where it probably cost me money to do that deal because of the staff and everyone that I have on the team. So I don't care who's doing what. I'm very strategic also with how I invest my money. And so for that client in particular, I have actually and this obviously is harder to do when you're newer, but it's something that I've been really intentional about when I was growing in the business. This guy came to me from Instagram, and actually, let me see if I can. I'll see if I can find the very first mess DM that he sent me on Instagram. But this seller that I've been working with for a while has actually, oh man, I gotta find this because it's good. He actually reached out to me on a cold DM on Instagram, and there we go, and said he had been following me for years and wanted to chat about development he was working on. And it's been a goal of mine to work with builders. I always like working with investors and developers and whatnot because I think that they can supplement all the stuff that the homeowners are doing, like the retail buyers. And so this guy in particular, I've sold 20 houses for in the last year. And he asked me to invest with him in an Airbnb flip. And I was hesitant. Then he told me that he was working on some other projects, and if I did it, he would give me he would give me a few listings on this new stuff that he's working on, which is a lot of these like $250,000, $300,000 new construction homes in pretty rural areas. And I thought about it and then decided that it was worth doing. And I told him, I don't want you to just, write up an agreement and tell me that I'm only going to list three or four of these. I want to just have a handshake deal that I'm your guy if I do this. And so I sent him that money. I invested in this deal. He claimed it was only going to be a 3-month deal, and it's been a year and a half, and he still has my money. But I've gotten 20 listings since then. So and he knows that he still owes me. He knows that we still have an agreement on this. And so it's helped get me more listings. And so there are a lot of very strategic ways to work with investors or builders if that's something that's interesting to you. Just telling them that you're a good agent isn't going to be good enough. You have to either invest in their business, you have to give them money, or you have to feed their business, which is giving them deals. So if you're bringing them opportunities, whether it's financially or land or tear downs or flip opportunities, they are going to reward you for that. So here you go. I found this. So look, this guy, this is the power of social media. I mean, I've done 20 deals for this guy in a year. He sent me this and just randomly DMing back and forth, like, is this for a client? Blah, blah, blah. Are you investing? I was like, it's for a client. Seems like you have multiple quotes. Like, I don't even know this guy, right, at this time. This is in 2021. Do you do anything on the investment side? Started some this year. At that time, I had a wholesaling company and it wasn't really doing much. And then
webinar.
And then see in July, he goes, I've been following your posts for a while, so I know that you have really good pulse on the area. I can't share all the details yet, but I'm partnering with another investor and a builder on a 6-lot gated subdivision in Huntersville. There will be 4 lots that we're building custom homes on to sell, all 1+ acre lots, 4,000 plus square feet. Want to connect with you and share some details. And that literally turned into this Asbury Village community, which I can show you. What we've been able to do since then. So because of that, I have sold each of these. We sold this one first last year, sold it pre-construction or during construction. Then we sold, this was actually his personal home that he built. So he lives in the neighborhood. It's unbelievable. And then we sold this one to a Panthers player pre or during construction. And then we sold this one mid-construction to a buyer who ended up not moving in. And I now have that listing right now. And hopefully we should be getting an offer on it today. And then I haven't even listed the one that we got under contract for $3.6 million this weekend. So just because that guy was following me on social media and I was kind of going back and forth with him a little bit, that one DM arguably changed my life. So obviously there's a lot of other work, and he's not the only guy that I work for or work with, because we've done a lot of deals so far this year, and last year and every year. But like this stuff works. People do follow you. People do see what you're doing. They do care about what you're saying. They do care about how you're presenting yourself. And I'll tell you, the best thing that I learned was day one at KW in training. They said, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a professional. And if you are a professional, then the expertise will come. And that was one of the biggest things that stuck with me. And I tell my team that all the time. I tell all the new agents on our team that. I have to remind myself that sometimes, that I can't be an expert on everything, but if I'm professional, then I'll be able to handle any situation. And so it's worked. I mean, I've been able to build the business over the last 7.5 years. I went from doing, like, I did 12 deals my first year, I think 24 the second year. Third year was about 40. Fourth year was 2020, when it was about 50 or 60 deals. And then from there, it's been about 90 to 115 for me personally every year that I'm doing. So it is, it's something where I fully believe in supplementing all of the hard work with some of the social media, some of the networking. But at the end of the day, it is all about putting in the work. And so you have to be there every single day, showing up consistently. You have to be responding to people. You have to be a high-level communicator, because as soon as someone sends you a text message with the question, they are waiting for you to respond to them. And that is my mindset around this. Like, it kills me that I have 9 text messages right now, because I started this with 0. And honestly, that's nothing. Usually for something right now, like for something like this, by now I probably have 35 text messages. And sure, maybe 1 or 2 of them will be group chats that I don't really care about right now. But at the end of the day, that's 9 people right now who are waiting to hear back from me. And that's my mindset on that. It's not just, oh, someone sent me a text, like I'll answer it when it's convenient for me. It's, oh, someone sent me a text. They are waiting to hear back from me. And you have to remember, like, we are helping people with the biggest purchase of their entire life. And so when they send you a text message with a question about the biggest purchase in their entire life, you have to think that they are sitting there waiting for you to respond. So that is something that's super important, that people have told me would burn me. People have told me that would burn me out. They've told me that it's not sustainable. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still here. I love it. At the end of like, sometimes I do get a little burnt out from that, but I have a team in place who can help me when that happens. So you really have to dive into this. And at the end of the day, we're all very lucky that we're in really good markets, whether you're in North Carolina, South Carolina, like we're all in really strong markets compared to most of the country. A lot of our peers are in markets that are major sellers or major buyer markets with a lot more inventory and a lot more people moving out of the city or out of the town versus into it. I know Charlotte, we have like 115 people moving here every single day. I'm sure Raleigh's pretty similar, and some of the other towns in North and South Carolina are very similar. So if you're out there and exposing yourself and in front of people and making a name for yourself, there's a lot of new people coming to these cities. And that's one of the things that I really like about Charlotte is there's so many new people moving here every day. And as soon as all it takes is one person from that family or friend group to move in, and then if you do a good job, you're set. Like a great example is I used to live in a townhouse in Sedgefield, which is outside of South End, which is one of the hottest parts of town right now. It's a young part of town. It's a lot of apartments and breweries and bars. Um, but I lived in a townhouse. I actually sold the townhouse next door to me a few years ago. I was representing the seller, and then one of my friends was the buyer's agent. And the buyers were cool people, but like I didn't know them by any means because I don't cross that line. And then I ended up buying the townhouse 2 years later or a year later, directly next door. Got to know the neighbors a little bit. I mean, I literally hung out with them like 2 or 3 times in the 2 years I lived in this townhouse. But they were watching me on social media all the time. So even though I didn't know them super well, they were always watching me. And the husband is a huge bourbon fan, as am I. I have a problem. I collect bourbon. I gamble on bourbon. Like I literally gamble on winning rare bottles of bourbon. It's a problem. But the husband is big into bourbon and the wife is from Kentucky. So they're also into bourbon. So they love watching what I'm doing and when I'm posting about drinking bourbon and winning nice bottles and stuff like that. And one day they texted me that her sister and her husband were getting ready to move to Charlotte. So I hop on the phone with them, don't think anything really of it. And then they start casually asking about like, if you have a $3 million budget, like where would you buy? And I start thinking, oh my God, like I haven't sold a $3 million house. Like this is pretty sweet. Like I've just started getting more into the luxury market. Um, and so these people came into town. We did 2 trips and showed them probably 20 houses in 2 different trips, and anywhere from 1.5 to $3 million. And they just closed on a $2.2 million house. And then when they were going under contract, because things were moving quick, we had to move fast. They weren't super liquid, but what we did was her dad was very liquid. And so she had me talk to her dad, who basically said, like, the way we structured the offer was it was a cash offer, but if we could get a conventional loan, we were going to get a loan. And so um, the dad supplied a proof of funds from his bank, and then they ended up still able to get a loan. But when I spoke to the father, he told me that he had 20 million liquid in cash and that he may be coming to Charlotte sometime soon if this all works out. And so you bet your ass that I made sure we gave them white glove service and made it very enjoyable for those buyers. And lo and behold, we closed it last week, and I had a conference call with the dad who is casually looking around for a $4 or $5 million house right now. And he's coming into town next weekend. And he buys houses like we buy freaking cans of Coca-Cola. So when you treat people right and you actually care about their needs and you give them a high level of service, they will tell other people. And all of this was because of one couple that I lived next to, but they were the first ones in Charlotte. Then they got her sister to move to Charlotte. Now they're getting the dad to move to Charlotte. I bet the dad has a lot of pretty well-off friends. So if they start telling their friends, oh, you guys, actually, this is pretty great. You should come over here and retire here or whatever here. It's like that happens all the time. And so that happens in Raleigh, I'm sure. I'm sure it happens in all the coastal towns, especially for people retiring. So take advantage of that because a lot of people are moving to these towns, and there's a lot of deals that are happening because of that. And if you can be the first guy in or the first girl in or whatever, like if you're the first contact and you're the reason that that first person in the friend group or in the family made it to whatever city, then they're going to remember that and they're going to push you to all of their people.
That's awesome. I think that is so much power in making sure that we aren't kind of short-sighted with one client, right? It's about giving that customer service, no matter it's a $35,000 lot or if it's a, somebody that's going to do $20 million with you throughout the year. One of my big questions is kind of that mindset around videos. And when you were scrolling, I saw a lot of your videos looked really professional. Are you always doing like professional videography, or do you just set up the camera and kind of roll with it?
So I am now doing professional videography. I started doing that in 2020. I used to be part of Ryan Serhant's coaching program, and I like literally will never forget in April of 2020, he was doing these masterminds, and I had a question. I said, "Look, I'm still selling. My main write-off at the time was meals." Because I was always going out to dinners, I was always going out to drinks meetings, lunches, coffee meetings, you name it. Meals and entertainment was my biggest expense for my business. That was my biggest write-off. And obviously with COVID, you couldn't do that. And I was like, what can I do to have a good write-off that's not just going out and buying a Tahoe? Because I was getting ready to just go buy a Tahoe and write that off and be like, well, this is instead of my meals this year. And he was like, you should do video. And so I hired a videographer and I've never looked back. Now, before that, I would go to my open houses and I would stand outside the day before with my phone like this, and I would film the day before and I'd say, hey, this is Andy. I'm standing in front of 123 Main Street. I'm actually going to be at an open house here or hosting an open house here tomorrow, Saturday from 12 to 2. So make sure you come by. We're going to have all kinds of good snacks. There's going to be a lot of people, so make sure you get here early. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Right. And I would take 15 takes of that because it's not easy to do. And then I would post it and it didn't matter. And nowadays, there's iPhones are just as good as most of these professional cameras. So
Yeah, that's kind of, I just didn't know if you saw like a difference in engagement. I think a lot of times we get in our heads that we've got to like look a certain way and we've got to hire the professional videographer and do the things. And I just didn't know if it was kind of one of those things like you just got to start and do it.
you just have to do it. And you have to also get over the fact that it's going to look weird. It's going to sound weird. It's really weird watching yourself back. I hate it. Um,
Mhm.
but that's how you present yourself to the world anyways. That's how people see you. Um, there are certainly some things that you can do and learn and fix from watching your stuff, like certain just little habits and things that people do. I've been able to like stop doing some of that stuff like from watching the videos back.
And
Yeah,
I will
that's
say
great.
I have a performance background. And so there's two things I had to really take, like I never did video. I hated it. One thing, you actually will never hear yourself the way you sound because your ears are literally positioned behind your mouth. So just moveon.com, just get the video done. But like you guys present a lot in your body language in your videos as well. And one of the things that I always tell agents is like, if you have a problem, even in just like in belly to belly sales, where you feel like you're having a hard time with moving conversations along or anticipating, go take an acting class, go take an improv class, go work with someone that can help you figure out how your body moves. I have a nervous tick where when I'm in a group, and it's actually a defense mechanism. So watch this in your videos where I'll like cuss my hands in front of my body. And I learned that in college because I would get up for like rehearsal runs and that would be my like go-to stance. It's like literally your body trying to protect you from what it perceives as danger out there. So there's so many things like under the surface that you can like deep dive into. But I will say if you're struggling with video, go to your local art center, like go take an improv class, do something like that, because you're gonna have to just get in a space where you're comfortable doing it. Because I'm sure like we can all say like this is where we're not, this isn't going away. Like the video on social media, the video on the way you communicate with your clients, it's just not something that's just gonna, a trend that's here that's going tomorrow.
Yeah, and also like in every June, I think it was in June, I have this one open house video that I posted that always resurfaces, and I always share it and repost it because it's from my first year. It's cringeworthy. I didn't have a beard. I'm wearing like sunglasses sitting outside on like a rooftop in uptown Charlotte, like with the skyline. I'm like screaming at the phone. And I post that and I'm like, look, guys, like it hasn't always been polished like this. And the other thing too is like when I film with other people, they think that like I just nail it on the first take every single time. And when I'm filming with friends and they see me like fumble over words and take multiple takes, they're like, oh, like he's not just like perfect on camera. And I'm not like saying that because I'm not. I don't think I am. But like every once in a while I can hit something in one take. But like a lot of times it takes a couple takes. And it's very normal, but you don't post all that. People don't see all of that. So
No, we
it's
posted mine the other day, guys. If you go to my Instagram right now, you'll see a blooper reel from us trying to cut a single property explanation video. And like, honestly, it's one of the best videos that we've put out all year. And it was literally just me being a complete goof because I could not get a take. I know Megan's on the call and she was like, Anna, what is wrong with you? But it's good content either way.
yeah. The other thing too to be careful of and a mindset that you need to get into when it comes to video is what is someone who's on the other side of this watching, what are they thinking and what can they learn? And so I'll never forget the very first video that I posted was I started doing zip code videos. And so my first day filming, I went and did a zip code video of 28202, which is uptown Charlotte, like basically our center city. And I'm walking around, I'm like, here's a cool coffee shop, here's a cool restaurant, here's some houses. Like you can get a townhouse, you can get a condo, you can rent something. Like there's actually some single family homes. And that was basically it. And everyone's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Because yeah, it's cool when you post a professionally made video. But then I had one guy go, I didn't learn anything from watching that video. And he's like, you wasted 10 minutes of my time. And that resonated with me because then I realized, okay, I need to make sure that I'm actually teaching people something. Like you need to be able to come away from watching one of the videos with something, whether it's a short video, whether it's a long video, it doesn't matter. There's got to be something. So that's where it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. I think 80% of the time you need to be teaching or explaining something, and 20% of the time it doesn't matter, right? So like a blooper reel is awesome. I wouldn't post a blooper reel every single week because then people may not take you seriously. But if you're being presented to the public as a very good real estate professional who's strong at what they do, and then you're like, oh, hey, by the way, like I'm a normal human, like here's a blooper reel. It's like that resonates really well with people.
Absolutely. Guys,
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the blooper reel for sure, but I totally understand what you're saying. So, does anybody have any questions while we've got you and we're able to kind of connect and all that good stuff?
Someone has to have a question.
Yeah, I feel like I rambled for like a half an hour, but I could always keep going.
No, it's great.
No, I think you did great. No, I appreciate it. I think that just being able to find business owners on social media is so important as kind of like the world has evolved. I think even just as much as like LinkedIn and TikTok, there's so many different options on here. And we've got our famous Sula Favi as well, who does a really good job. And her whole thing is YouTube videos. And that's a big part of it is showing value, understanding the area, answering questions for people. So I think that it all matters. And I think that knowing you now and being able to connect, I'm going to go and follow. And a lot of it is just emulating as well. Like, you're in a different market. I can literally go to your page and say, this is what you did, and I can just remake them for my area. I mean, I think sometimes we're so interested in reinventing the wheel that we just have to find somebody that's done it well and make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I was getting started, I just watched a lot of Ryan Serhant's videos and would just try and emulate that.
We do have one question in the chat. Actually, someone driving, but they text us. Could you ask if he dials into social media more versus traditional cold calling, which I think she hopped on the call late. So I'll let you kind of revisit that just because I know you're very relational, built business.
I hate cold calling.
Same.
When I started cold call, like when I would cold call around open houses, I never did expireds. I did do FISBOs, and I can actually get into that in a second. But I hate cold calling. Like I used to literally sit at this was back when I lived with roommates in a duplex. Like I would sit at my desk with a glass of bourbon and would make calls because I knew I was going to get told to fuck off. And I don't like that. I am a habitual, I'm a people pleaser. And so if I call people and they get angry at me like that, it gets under my skin so fast and I just can't do it. So I turned to social media with that. But when I was new, I also was cold calling for sale by owners and had a strategy to try and get for sale by owners and converted one, which became it became my first listing. So I would call for sale by owner and offer to do an open house basically for free. Which there's there's legalities around that. There's paperwork you have to put together. So you have to kind of know your ins and outs of the contract and how to set it up. But there's a way that you can do it. And so the goal was to be able to do an open house, knock their socks off with it, with the amount of work that you put in, the amount of people that come through, and for them to not sell the house yet. So then you can try and get the listing. Because if you can work that hard for them for free, imagine how hard you would work for 3%.
Mhm.
And that was it was a flipper, and that was what he did, what happened. And I gave him that line, and he let me list one. And then I listed 3 more for him that year in my first year in real estate. So, and I've done a lot of business with those guys. But I hated cold calling.
Yeah, Andy, I mean, this is how I look at it. I always try to recondition my team. We're very heavy SOI. We're very heavy, relations, key accounts, things like that. I think our businesses look very similar. And one of the things that I always tell them is like, you're making the call in to try to convert someone and add a database addition that is going to become part of your sphere of influence. I always had to take my calls that way, because for me, if they were churn and burn, let me set the appointment, let me, get through my LPT mama, I was checked out within a few seconds, because it felt gross to me. I'd much rather try to build the relationship on the phone, which made me a terrible cold caller, because I would be on the phone for like an hour with these people, and then I had to start looking at my hourly rate, and I was like, this isn't serving my business. Just like you, I'm better off to go to the chamber event. I'm better off to go out with my girlfriends for drinks. I'm better off to go do something that
Yep,
puts me in the community versus being behind the phone with one person.
exactly.
Megan has a question. I just moved to the Raleigh area this summer from Nashville and no one here except my fabulous team with Anna Powell. You're welcome. What would you recommend a newish agent like me starting to do in a new area to gain business where I know no one? So relationship based, and go out and do focus more on open houses and then work on the relationships later. What would you say there, Andy?
It's going to depend on what you like doing more of and how quickly you want to try and get business, right? To me, the relationship based and the networking piece of it it's stickier, right? People feel like they're drawn to you when you're doing the more relationship based, networking based type business. You have a stronger chance of being able to keep them in your corner or get them in your corner. But if you need something quicker, open houses literally are the best way because you're just setting up shop and people are walking in to meet you. And the more that you do, the more opportunities you give yourself, right? There's an agent, Ethan Wallace. He's in my downline here in Charlotte. Solo agent, usually does like 4 million a year. And last year around Christmas was getting ready to, he likes doing open houses. So that's where he gets the majority of his business. It was like the week before Christmas and he's like, whatever, I'm not going to do an open house. And then decided, you know what? I'm just going to give one a shot. Like, why not? And did one for like a $2 million listing. The neighbors walked over. He hit it off with them. And next thing you know, he in February had his first $2 million listing for 2.4 million at the time. And he sold it. And then those people bought a $2 million house. So he did his annual bit amount of sales in 2 deals from one open house because he just did one more open house before Christmas. So you never know. I haven't been as lucky with people walking in with open houses, but what I tell agents all the time is like, why do all the $300,000 and $400,000 open houses when you could do a 6, 7, 800, $1.5 million open house? So there's an agent that I coach right now, and I tell him he would always say that like he gets clients and he's stuck in these like $300,000 and $400,000 price points, and those are the only open houses he's really doing. And so I challenged him. I said, you're doing 2 open houses every weekend. One of them has to be over $1 million. And that will start to change things. The conversations you're having with the people coming in change. The conversations you're having with potential clients are changing. If you can convert any of those, everything starts changing. So open houses are certainly quicker, and they're tried and true. And they give you a lot of reasons to reach out to people. And you're building credibility in a community if you're doing open houses in the same neighborhood all the time.
Mhm.
But to me, the networking stuff, it's harder, it takes longer, but it's more rewarding, it's more fun. Like, I'm taking this guy to a soccer game tonight. I can count for a handful of sales, not for him personally, but for people that he's introduced me to. So it's like, why not? Like, that guy's giving me so much business, and I'm gonna buy him what, a couple beers and a hot dog. So
Andy, what do you say to people that say they don't have an SOI? I hear that from agents all the time too. And so they ask, personally, I find this interesting because I feel like, you create your SOI, but what do you say if you have an agent that you're coaching or you're working with that says, oh, well, I don't have an SOI?
the first question is, what do you like to do? Right? What do you like to do? For me, I went to Virginia Tech. I love Virginia Tech. It's right there, right? There's a Virginia Tech alumni network here in Charlotte. So guess what I started doing? I started going to Virginia Tech alumni events, whether it was the board meetings just to sit in and listen and meet people, or the golf tournament. I would maybe sponsor a hole, take the cheapest sponsorship just to get my name out there. But I would also make sure I was there. So if you're doing any of the marketing like that, you have to make sure you're activating the marketing dollars. So I wouldn't just sponsor a hole at a golf tournament. I would be sitting there meeting people. Then I also was networking and getting to know the guy who ran the watch parties for the Virginia Tech football games in Charlotte. And so then, because of that, I was able to build out a sponsorship with them. I don't know if I have it here. I don't know where it is. But then I got them to allow me to start passing out koozies with my information on them every single week for every football game at the bar in Charlotte. And I was always there handing them out. And so I did that for like 3 years in a row, 3 or 4 years, basically 3 years until COVID started. And now I've got agents on my team who went to Virginia Tech, so I give them the koozies, and now we also have cups that people can drink from with all of our information on it. And so our stuff is everywhere. But I love Virginia Tech, and so to me, it's fun. It's not really work. It's a good integration of work and life. And so it's not about having work-life balance, it's about integrating those. So if you really like wine, go join a wine tasting group. If you really like, I'm also involved in like the Jewish community here in Charlotte. And so I was an advisor for a youth group. The guy that I first met, who is also an advisor, is literally about to put an offer on a house after knowing him for 7 years today. I stay involved with all these different types of groups and I make sure that I'm in front of them. So it's all about finding different groups that you're a fan of and things that you like doing, and it will not feel like work, but it is work. So that to me is one of the best ways to build different sphere of influence, is because you have to have something that you like.
Yeah, I just dropped in. I just always use this podcast when I run into this conversation with agents. It's one that Kyle Whistle did, who's a business partner of ours in California. And it really talks about this concept of social engineering. Some of us need like titles to what we're doing to be able to follow a path forward. And basically this goes in, same thing Andy just said. Hey, you're interested in whitewater rafting. You're going to go join a whitewater rafting group. You're going to go start to immerse yourself into that community. You're obviously not going to be like, oh, I love knitting, I'm going to go join this knitting community because I feel like that demographic is going to buy and sell homes more. You never want to go, inauthentically go show up somewhere. But that's a great, if you want to deep dive on this topic, copy and paste that in the chat, save it for a listen later. It was a really great one. I go back and listen to it pretty frequently. That's why I had it toggled so high on my list, because it's a great listen.
Yeah, I mean, look, and then when people talk about breaking into luxury markets, like it's obviously within reason, but like there are people who will go buy a Porsche so that they can be part of the Porsche club. Because when you're at the Porsche club events, you're talking to guys or women who have enough disposable income to have a Porsche and drive it around on a Saturday. And they're probably buying nice houses. I'm into luxury watches. I like collecting watches. Guess what? When I go to watch club events, you're either talking to people who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of timepieces that they wear, or guys that have one and stretch to get it and not envy, but have a lot of respect for other people who are in that club because it's hard to get a luxury timepiece. And you can have really good conversations with people. And when they go to buy houses, they're typically going to be nicer houses. And so I like that kind of stuff. And that's why I do them. I'm lucky enough that I'm able to do that, but I also really actually enjoy it. So even if there's 5 people at this watch club event, I'm going to be there. And so I started going to some more of those kinds of things. I go to some of the Porsche events at the dealership. Usually I'm like showing houses because it's Saturdays, but I try to swing by, right? So I'm trying to stay in front of the right people with the right networks. And so sometimes some of these kinds of things get your foot in the door into a different group, and that can make a big difference too.
Agree. Any other last questions? Andy, this has been great. Normally like 9:15, we're done. So the fact that we've stretched to 9:30 tells me we had a lot of good information here. If you're not following Andy on social media, go give him a follow. Like many of us, I know you come from abundance. I know you are the type that you're an open playbook. That's why you're on our call this morning. You're not over there hoarding all of your secrets to how you've built the business that you have. So I'll make the open for you. Get in his DMs, send him a message. I'm sure he's got tons more information to share if you have some questions that we didn't cover today. I'm always thankful for our network and for our people. So thank you, Andy, for giving us an hour of your time that I know is a high hourly rate just to pour back into agents within our group and outside of our group. So I really, really appreciate you this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing everyone on Instagram.
Andy, we'll see you in Miami at the end of the month.
Yes, I will be in Miami.
Great. We're so excited. I think that's starting to be on the calendar. It's starting to show up. And so pumped for that. So we put a little flow ride on the playlist yesterday to get us ready. All right, my friends, have a great Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we're right back here at 8:30 like we are every week. And we'll figure out what we're talking about next week.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Andy. This has been great. Everyone have a great week.